Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to the Unconventionally Miles podcast. Another episode of my Soul Food Sundays, aka Food for Thought. This is going to be episode 4 of the installation of the Soul Food Sundays series. In return, I hope everybody's week has been good. It's been enjoyable. But let's get into it. My question to you all is, how often do you pay attention? And paying attention has everything to do with your surroundings, the people you're around, the company you keep, your job, your family members, just everything in a whole. I was always taught that paying attention is free, and that's something that many of us lack at some point. Paying attention is just being aware of your surroundings and making sure you execute on those that surround you, the task at hand, the energy that's being given to what you're giving to other people and what people are giving to you. A lot of times when we don't pay attention, we allow ourselves to be taken advantage of, right? And we let things slide that we normally wouldn't let slide if we was fully aware of what was taking place. So how often do you pay attention? How often you pay attention to the daily task, your overall goals, and just the things that you have lined up from a day-to-day basis? Paying attention is free is something that I always tell myself, and I tell individuals that surround me, is because it doesn't cost you anything to observe the things that you're doing. It doesn't cost anything at all. So do you pay attention? Right? So every day I wake up with a plan, or I try to have a plan. Is that something you do as well? And if not, how come? And if you're not a person that pays attention to details, it's a lot of gems and gifts in the details that we may miss. How often do you have a friend, family, or loved one that you do so much for, but you don't look at the cues that maybe you're doing too much and you're being their crutch? And you're actually robbing them on the experiences that they need to go to during that hard time. How often do you look into that? Many times we save individuals instead of having them go through the lesson that needs to be learned in the trials and tribulations that they're facing. If you're paying attention to the gift in that, you will look at things a lot different. I'm not telling you to let somebody rot, but give them the opportunity to really try and grind and get themselves out of that situation. Because once they get themselves out of that situation, they're gonna be a lot stronger, right? And they're gonna know what it takes to get out of the current obstacle that they're facing. Therefore, they know how to prevent themselves from going into that same obstacle down the line. The term paying attention is free is vital to me. It's dear to my heart, right? Some things that are free is the hardest things for many of us to do. How come? Monetary value is not always the cash in your bank or the cash in your pocket. I look at monetary value as time as well. So the more keenly I pay attention to what's taking place, it can save me time and money later on. Even if we look at relationships that we're in, sometimes the person we meet, we want them to be something they're not. And we overlook what we're seeing and the behavior that's given because we're not paying attention, right? But if you pay attention up front, it can save a lot of heartache on the back end. Don't be naive to what you see. Don't be naive to your intuition. Don't be naive to that in any situation, business or pleasure. Don't be naive. Pay attention. That thing that's free is going to save you on the long run and in the long run. Right? How do you feel when you're being taken advantage of? Is that a pleasant feeling? Is that something you continuously want to keep going through? And if so, more power to you. I'll give you a round of applause. For me, that's not something I want to keep going through if I'm going through it at that time. I want to save time and I want to save money. I want to save brain power and I want to save heartache if I can. The small details in the things that we observe, are aware of, and execute on will make or break so many situations. If we just think about a basketball player, right? We just say if somebody's going to the basket, right? Usually individuals who play great defense or they have good footwork, they studied tape and they paid attention to the details. They paid attention to the stuff that was free. They took time to analyze how to be better. Energy is important, people. Energy is highly important. And when you feel negative energy, you have to pay attention to it. Right? When you feel good energy, you have to pay attention to it. Typically, when we meet people, 3 things happen. We meet someone, have a conversation with them. We leave that conversation with positive energy when we leave. Or we meet a person and then we leave that engagement with the same energy we came in with. Lastly, you meet someone and you feel like your energy has been robbed. They left with more than you left with. Sometimes that happens. Even exchange of good energy is not always present, but when things are continuously going that way, where you're coming in with positive energy and good energy and you constantly leaving with something very much so less than that, analyze it, pay attention to it. You can't change someone. We could want a person to change, but it's up to them to grow. If they want to grow, a lot of times they will. You don't have to worry about them changing because they see the areas, or they was able to assess the situation and the areas that they're weak at and become better. Lack of awareness, lack of paying attention, lack of observation can be detrimental to your growth, right? I always ask myself, right, if I'm dealing with anybody for a long period of time, right, I ask myself, are they taking me for granted? The positive things that I possess, that I'm trying to provide them, are they taking it for granted because I give it to them in a manner that's just free? Because anybody else I wouldn't give that same energy to, right? Am I allowing them to take advantage of me? And in return, when I provide that information to them, are they grateful enough to at least say thank you? Thank you, please, you're welcome. Those still are rules and mannerisms that go far. But pay attention to that. Pay attention to those individuals that you provide your time, energy, and services to, and make sure you're not being taken advantage of. Make sure they're grateful of what you're providing them. Make sure you're paying attention to these things that are taking place. Once again, paying attention is free. You're going to save a lot more money, time, and headache if you actually pay attention. Food for Thought Sundays, I always want to give you a tool or topic that is going to allow you to evaluate and alleviate certain stresses and pressures that's taking place, and also growing on your time clock. I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. But one thing I can say is I learn every day from every situation and second. I would encourage you all to do the same, because with growth becomes wisdom. With wisdom becomes happiness. With happiness, life is so much more simple. Life isn't difficult if you don't overcomplicate things. But life can be very difficult when things that you can avoid, you close a blind eye, because what you want isn't aligned with what's actually taking place. We all like the person, right? But we seen things that didn't align with our ethics, morals, and the way we like to move. And a lot of times we get the bad end of the stick. That pretty girl or handsome man is not always best for you. That job that pays more money doesn't always align to what your overall goals are. That friend that you have is not always good in the long run. It's always seasons and reasons. What is the season they came in your life for? What is the season that they came in your life to? And what's the reason that they either stayed or left your life. It's okay. Sometimes people got an expiration date. Sometimes individuals got an expiration date, and then that expiration date expires. Then you guys meet again, cross paths again, and you guys both grew, and now you guys are in alignment with one another, where now it's the best time for you guys to coexist with one another and actually be friends and build on that relationship, whatever that is, personal, friendship, family, whatsoever. This episode of Food for Thought Soul Food Sundays called Paying Attention is free, because that's something many of us lacked. And as we try to become more keenly wise and sharp with our decisions, if we pay attention and observe the things that's taking place, I think you'll be a lot more better than you actually think. We're not perfect, but the goal is to grow and gain wisdom and knowledge. And during that time, we're all going to go through heartache and trials and tribulations. But sometimes wounds, disagreements, loss of time and money is self-inflicted with the lack of paying attention. I would definitely motivate you, and I hope I can inspire you to just think about that. Some of these questions here. Do I pay attention to the things that I do, the people I'm around, and the actions that I make? Am I allowing myself to be taken advantage of in any situation because it's a lack of awareness and paying attention? Are those I provide my time, services, money, what energy to? Are they grateful? Right? If you're dealing with somebody that's not grateful, then you may be in a wrong space with that person at that time, or maybe forever. Right? Why are things that are free so hard for individuals to execute on? I'm guilty with it, but I learned that once I was able to be aware and analyze and observe those situations, I was able to move more freely to avoid those things from happening again. Once again, the plan ain't to be perfect. The plan is to be better than you were yesterday. You can manifest things, and that's a term individuals use loosely and freely. You can manifest a ton of things, but it's going to be very hard to manifest and execute when you don't put yourself in alignment to the steps you need to take in order to see that growth and prosperity in the areas that you're looking for. You could read a ton of books, but are you executing? You could listen to a ton of people, but are you paying attention? Are you listening with your mouth, or are you actually listening to pay attention? These are things you have to ask yourself, or you don't have to. I would like you to ask yourself, because that's what I ask mine. That's what I ask when I'm thinking about some of those areas. I had a conversation with one of my coworkers. Shout out to Maria and Yuma. Fire, super cool. She motivates me in times when I don't want to get on and do a podcast. But what I can say is I'm grateful and appreciative that she listens to the podcast and it adds value to her life, because she adds value with the conversations we have. You can find inspiration in the smallest areas, from people you just met to people you knew forever. Sometimes we look for you're looking for all the right things in all the wrong places. That traditionally happens when you're not paying attention to what you're doing and the actions that you're actually doing and you're moving in on. If you wake up, be inspired by waking up. No day's promise. The next movement may not happen. You good just waking up. If nobody believes in you, someone will, and you should be the main one. Don't look for validation from other people. You woke up today. God gave you another chance. That's more than enough for me, right? We can all be great, but we have to be great in the areas that are aligned for us. I don't look at anyone and say, oh, they do it, I can do it. You're running the wrong race. That's not your race. We all have genius abilities, but finding out what that is can be extremely difficult if you constantly looking at what someone else is doing and what they have. Pay attention to the things that you do. A lot of times our gifts come in an area that we hate doing, but we're very good at it. I tell myself all the time, I really don't want to speak to people all day. Unfortunately, that's something I'm good at. And no matter how much I run from it, I always come back to a situation where I'm in a leadership role, where I'm conversing with individuals, motivating them, inspiring or educating them to be better. Right? Sometimes it's not going to be for everyone. And those individuals that my message isn't for, I don't feel no kind of way about them. I don't harbor no malice in my heart. They maybe can't appreciate the information I'm giving them, and I understand that, but I'm not going to waste my time on it. I was able to observe and really analyze and execute who this is for. Right? So Soulful Sundays is more or less a thought and a topic to get you prepared for the upcoming week and think about the previous weeks and the time that has passed. And hopefully this can touch you in a way where you can try to build off it in your own life and be better. Right? Chime in, rate, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. If you haven't, refer it to a friend, share it to a friend. Just make sure you chime in. You know, check my Instagram, Mr. Frequent Flyer Miles. Check my TikTok, Unconventionally Miles, on TikTok. Right? Check my video podcast with my guy Freddie P on 2 Brains 1 Goal. So I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to motivate and move around in areas that I normally wouldn't, but I'm not ashamed or I'm not embarrassed about anything I do. And that's another thing. If you're not up right now, don't be embarrassed. There's a season and a reason for what you're going through. Usually when you pray on something right? Usually when you pray on things that you want and you want God to answer those prayers, it seems like things get harder or you're in a hard spot when you're praying for it. Right? How do you know that's not something you needed to go through in order to get to the next level? Just because you pray for it don't mean it should come easy. So these are things that you got to pay attention to. Sometimes we ask ourselves, why am I always going through something? Because maybe you need to go through some of the things that you're going through in order to be built for what's to come. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to your struggles. Like we all get our heart broke, right? Your heart is like a muscle sometimes. You break it down and build it up. So keep that in mind, right? When nobody believes in you, you believe in yourself. When you believe in yourself, you make others want to follow suit. So once again, Soulful Sunday, food for thought. Make sure you check my social media handles. Once again, it's Mr. Frequent Flyer Miles on Instagram. It's 2 Brains 1 Goal on Instagram. Right? One Touch Mortgage on Instagram. By the way, I'm also a loan officer, licensed loan officer. Cover Arizona, DC, Maryland, Virginia, Texas, and Vegas. You know, so sometimes I'm going to have some guest speakers on here and we're going to be talking about the mortgage game and being a loan officer and financial literacy and investments. This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg. You know what I'm saying? So once again, paying attention is free. Make sure you pay attention to what you're doing, your surroundings, your loved ones, what you put energy into. Make sure individuals ain't taking advantage of you and you willingly know that, but you're still allowing them to. Those who you pour energy into, love into, make sure they're appreciative. Because the more you give out, sometimes it's harder to get information back in and get energy from back in, right? And be around like-minded people. Be around people that's better than you in things, right? Because that basically elevates everyone around you. Right? And the things that you're not so strong in, go study on it. Go learn on it. Go put in your craft. Go put in some time. Observation is key. Paying attention is free. Right? So once again, Unconventionally Miles podcast. I believe this is episode 4. Soulful Sunday, aka Food for Thought. The title of this episode is Paying Attention is Free. I'm up out of here. Thank you so much for listening. Rate, comment, subscribe, share. Make sure you chime in and give me some feedback. I'm out. 1.